Welcome back to a new video. Today, I'm not too sure what we're going to be cooking up. I'm going to be showing you guys a quick technique for sound design. Something that I discovered recently that's going to make your sound super unique, and it's very easy to do as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into it. So to do this, I'm going to be using pigments. I just got it recently for half price through Native Instruments. If you don't have pigments, you could also use the Mellotron, but the Mellotron doesn't have as many features to manipulate the sounds as pigments does. So essentially, we're just going to be using pigments as a sampler. As you can see, there's two engines. If we click this little arrow here, you can change between wavetable, analog, harmonic, and sample. So for the first engine, we're going to be using sample. You can layer this sound with maybe a sine wave or whatever you want to really, but for now we're just going to turn this off and focus and turn off the utility engine as well, and we're just going to focus on engine 1. So what I'm actually going to do first is just set it to default. That way we're starting completely from scratch. So let's click the arrow, let's select sample, and obviously there are samples within pigments itself. I'll show you that quickly first. So as you can hear, it's a very basic piano. Straight away we can change the sound. If we go to edit, we change it to loop. So if we drag this across, it's going to change where the loop starts. So if I press it now, you see we've taken out that attack sound. Now the great thing about the loop feature is that it kind of allows you to turn any sound into like a pad. So we found a little loop point there. What I'm going to do is go back to main and turn on the granular. This is where the sound can get really interesting. So as you can hear, just by me pressing, I've literally just turned it on, and it sounds like a completely different sound. It's almost like a pad. Instantly, that's a cool sound you can use. Obviously, you can mess around with the size and the stuff like this. So if we set it to 80 and I press record versus 700, it's much slower. You can see the grains are moving more smoothly, and that's going to make the sound more smooth as well. So to make the sound even more like a pad, let's go to the envelopes, turn the attack up a bit as well. What I'm also going to do is pitch it down by a whole octave. Just so we can get the sample going, I'm going to add some effects to it. We'll start off, let's just add the reverb to start with. Let's bring the dry wet up. Make it quite a big reverb. Let's actually add a chorus. I think actually let's add one more sound underneath it. I want to give it a bit more body. So if we turn on engine 2, let's go for wavetable. So that's just a basic sine wave, which will sound really good underneath the piano sound we already have. I've just turned the phase distortion up very slightly just to give it a little bit more high end. And finally, let's add a noise to it in the utility engine. You can just go down here and have a bunch of textures and just sounds you can add that aren't necessarily melodic, but they add texture to your sounds. So let's go to texture, fake rain maybe, that could sound cool. Let's just bring the volume quite way down. I think finally let's filter it out a little bit too, because I think some of the high end's cutting through too much. Okay, so I think that's good for the first sound. Now I'm just going to try and figure out some chords. I have no idea what kind of vibe I'm going to make. That's a really nice ambient melodic chord progression. Let's just add a couple of effects to it. I want to cut the low end out. I want to add a shaper box and use the filter presets. Let's change it to half and turn the mix off a little bit. I'm also going to bring the cutoff down because I want it to be super filtered out. I'm going to bring it down a couple of semitones. Actually, let's go with 3. So next I'm going to record some vocals. I'm going to get to that now, and then I'll show you guys once I've done it. Okay, so I've recorded a quick vocal line, and right now all it has is auto-tune on it. Yeah, that part's not... So I'm just going to chop it up a little bit, and then I'm going to add some effects to it. Let's just take this whole part out. I really don't like it. Let's have this run twice. Actually, let's take this part out as well. before adding effects, what I'm going to do is consolidate the track, just this part, and then start. So now we have one audio file to just mess around with. It just makes it easier, and also it makes it easier if I want to reverse it, stretch it, stuff like that. First of all, let's add a little alter boy. I'm going to pitch it all the way up and then bring the format down a little bit. Next, I'm going to add a bandpass EQ. And finally, a vintage reverb, pretty heavy because I want to drown it out. I'm also quickly going to add a fruity phaser to it. Next, I want to add like an accent, something kind of textural. I'm going to go into Layers Volume 2, which is in the very beginning stages of work, but I have this accent, this one here, that I think will sound sick on the first chord. So now I have the Mellotron open. I'm going to show you again how you can drag your own samples into it and make your own sounds. This time I'm going to use one of my own one-shots and show you how you can process it and make it sound different. So when you open up the Mellotron, you want to go to Advanced, and straight away down here, you can edit the sounds. So if you click the little pencil, it'll bring up the sampler. So what I'm going to do is go to Layers, go to the one-shots. Let's add we can just drag it straight in. And now it's inside the Mellotron, but obviously we want to make it sound different. So first of all, I'm going to loop it, and I'm going to change the start time, just like I did with the pigments. Let's also pitch it down by a whole octave. Then we can add some flutter to it. Let's do that, make it sound a bit detuned. Saturation, the mechanics, so like the sounds from the Mellotron that you'd have on a real one is going to be implemented into this sound. Some noise, so a little bit of a high end. And then the effects on the Mellotron, which is kind of where it sounds really cool. You can add 4 effects, add an amp, and like a room reverb type thing. So first of all, let's add some distortion. I want to go to Bit Crusher, this is my favorite. A really kind of weird, metallic, distorted sound. Then we can go, let's go for a flanger. Really, I'm just throwing random stuff on it. Let's go for a wah. The wah on this sounds sick. Finally, let's go for a reverb. And then the rotary speaker kind of makes it sound like an organ. Obviously, you can tell it's the same sound, but it is also sounding very different and a bit more unique. It's just something you can use to make your sounds different. You know, if it's a one shot you've used before, but you want to use it again, but in a different way, maybe throw it in the Mellotron, you know, something like that. Very simple counter melody, but it's going to add a nice little bit of texture on top. Next, let's add a bass. I want to do 2 basses. I'm going to start with like a stabby short one. And I'm going to do it at the end of every bar, like that, and let's bring it up. And the second bass is again from Layers, and it's just a respace. I've added an EQ to the bass, cutting the real low end out. I'm also going to add a volume shaper from Shaper Box. Let's do that, and let's do the quarter. Finally, let's add a perk loop. Again, I'm going to go to Layers Volume 2, not out yet. Going to be coming in the next couple of months, I think. Straight away, fire. Let's see how it sounds without any effects. Sounds really good like that. I just want to EQ out high end and low end, because obviously we're going to add our own drums on top. This is just for texture. So first, let's add a rim shot. Next, I'm going to go for a kick, I think, just to switch it up a little bit. I don't normally do that. As you can see, I've gone for a kind of different kick pattern. It's not hitting on the one. I kind of took that from the is it called, I think it's called Nail Tech by Jack Harlow. Boy Wonder produced it, and the kick just doesn't hit straight away. Completely different style of beat, but I think it sounds pretty cool. So next I'm going to add a little perk. And again, one more perk just for some textures. So now let's go for our hi-hat from Only One's new Balenciaga Volume 8. Finally, I want to add like an ambient perk underneath the snare. Okay, so that's the beat for today's video. Actually turned out really fire. I'm super happy with it. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and a comment and let me know what you want to see next. And I'll see you in the next one.